they're like curious, like you're truly in their eyes a celebrity status. I wasn't like super shocked, but I was like, dang, like it's grown to become the top lead source in our company. Whoa, I sold my house to this company and they were on TV. That's cool. My team was like, what did you do to the marketing? The conversion on those leads is extremely high. Kind of going back before we started TV, it was really throwing stuff at the wall, honestly. It was dropping a bunch of pieces of mail, trying to figure out what works, firing up some digital ads. It was very, I would say, inconsistent. When I saw TV, I'm like, okay, it is so powerful when we ask the question of, have you heard us on TV? Like it automatically.
So what if I told you that one of the oldest forms of advertising, which is TV commercials, is quietly becoming one of the most powerful tools for real estate investors in 25 and all years moving forward? So think about it. In a world dominated by cold calling, PPC, direct mail, there's one strategy that gives you credibility, gives you consistent leads, and makes sellers want to work with you before you say a word. So today we're pulling back the curtain with my good friend and real estate investor, Michael McDonald. One of the many success stories that we've seen from TV, and you're going to hear how it's transformed his business, is bringing in high quality leads, has boosted his ROI, and has made his other channels work better. So if you're an investor wondering how to stand out in a saturated competitive market, you're going to want to hear this because Michael's going to share some really good things with you today. So by the end of this, you will see why TV is, in my opinion, the number one marketing channel for real estate investors. So Michael, welcome.
Tony, what's up, man? So good to be here, and I appreciate the awesome intro there. So yeah, just excited to dive in.
Yeah, so we met about 3 years ago. I kind of remember our first conversation. We connected very quickly, become good friends, and you've been a great client for a few years, crushing TV. So looking forward to you sharing what your experience has been. And so tell people like before you started TV commercials, kind of tell us about your business. You're doing a high volume of deals. You're one of our, when looking at the amount of deals that you do and the way you operate your business, you're definitely one of the top that we've seen in the country. So tell us before TV what your business looked like, and then kind of a little bit about what it looks like now with TV.
Yeah, for sure. So kind of going back before we started TV, it was really throwing stuff at the wall, honestly. It was dropping a bunch of pieces of mail, trying to figure out what works, firing up some digital ads. It was very, I would say, inconsistent. Don't get me wrong, we were doing deals from those efforts, but it just was like not very predictable, right? And when we looked at TV, and we do radio now, which we can talk about, but we were looking for a very predictable channel, but also a channel that really brought in an added level of like credibility and authority, which is why when I saw TV, I'm like, okay, there's not that many people who are doing this. And if we can become that authority, we can be the trusted brand in our market. And really, that's why we decided to get into it in the first place. But yeah, before then, it was pretty much just, I would say, a few deals a month, 4 or 5 deals a month at that time. And that was 4 years ago. I think we've been doing TV for, gosh, what is 3+ years probably
I
at
said three
least.
years, but maybe I think it's been maybe closer to four, about 20, somewhere in 21. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So that's crazy to think about, but um, it's been a game changer for us, man. Before TV started, like I said, pretty unpredictable. Um, I think it scares a lot of people when you think of what's it actually cost to get on TV, but then when you actually see what it costs to get on TV and you do the math, it's like, oh, it's not even that bad, right? And now I was checking my KPIs before we started this. It's one of our top lead sources, which I wasn't like super shocked, but I was like, dang, like it's grown to become the top lead source in our company. And we do a lot of other marketing channels as well.
Nice, dude.
Yeah.
So you mentioned what you did before TV a little bit, some of the marketing channels. So you added TV. It seems like it's from what I understand, maybe close to doubled your business. Um, obviously, with new marketing channels, you've got to be skeptical, right? Um, the thing about you I mean, we do have a lot of people that in their first conversation are like understand it and they're like, let's go. And those are usually one of our, some of our best clients because they understand the power, they have the confidence to do it, and they're just like, hey, let's go. So on a first conversation, you're like, let's do it, man, let's go. So obviously you probably had some skepticism, even though you were ready to go. I guess what skepticism did you have? And then how long did it take you after TV started for that skepticism to kind of go down?
Yeah, for sure. Well, that's just, I think a lot of the personality that I am is I'm like, if I decide that something is, I want to do it, I go all in on it. I don't really ask too many questions. I just trust the process, right? And that's entrepreneurship for you. You just kind of have the faith and trust it. But there was a little bit of doubt after I decided to start TV because there's a cash conversion cycle with all forms of marketing, right? And I would say with TV, it's even a little bit longer. It's not a bad thing, but it just takes a little bit of momentum. So like when people first see the TV, the calls start to roll in, which is awesome. But it's the process of getting that contract from the month one to the month six, depending on your business model. At that time when we started, we were actually flipping pretty heavily. And so we knew that we were getting leads and deals, but it was until we actually started to see some of these deals hit the bank. We're like, wow, like these deals are better in most cases. Like we've closed some really big deals from TV early on, and that was the proof of concept that I needed to see because, let's just pretend that you're spending a good chunk of change for 5 months. Like that's scary, right? When you don't have a huge budget to play with until those bigger deals start to actually convert into cash. So if your business model is wholesale, um, probably be a little less scary, right? Because you're going to get that cash in the bank faster. But for us at that time when we started, it was actually heavy flip, which, as you guys know, depending on the market, like this was back in 2020, so like flips were half the duration that they are now. But that took a little longer. So it was until that actually started to hit the bank
Gotcha.
is when I realized, okay, like this is going to work. But for those first like 4 to 5 months, we're just feeling it out. We were testing the waters, trying to understand, just doing the math, right? And I think with any marketing campaign, you have to really trust the process and that it does take time. And there's serious momentum that takes place, especially with a marketing channel like TV, with the omnipresence factor that it creates. So that was another thing is you think that this is just how the lead flow is going to be. But honestly, if you're on TV for, as long as we've been on TV, you don't realize how many other channels it positively impacts. So I can tell you what my KPIs are, but what I can't tell you is how many people searched on Google and clicked on my website and didn't call my commercial because they heard of us from somewhere else, right? So such a powerful channel.
Yeah, so you mentioned good chunk and change. It's really not as expensive as most people would think. So you can share your numbers if you want to on what you're spending, but compare it to other channels. Are you really spending that much more than your other lead channels?
No, no, not even close. I mean, we spend across all marketing channels just over 50,000 a month, and 10 of that goes to PPC, 10 of that goes to direct mail, and then, 5 to 10 Facebook and other miscellaneous, and then the remaining budget goes to TV, and that's TV and radio, I should say.
Hmm.
So we're only about $10,000 a month on TV,
Yeah.
which is pretty comparable to the other channels. But it's not even really the lead volume. The lead volume's good, but as I look at the KPIs, we have essentially spent just over $10,000 a month on TV, and we've made well over 200,000 from that spend. So it's a little less than 3x, which isn't crazy when you look at the math. But keep in mind, a lot of these deals that have closed, and we've got 23 contracts so far this year from TV. So a lot of those haven't closed yet. So like the KPIs are skewed because another however much is in the pipeline, say hundreds of thousands potentially, is going to come in. That's just going to boost that ROI up like crazy.
Yeah, I mean, we encourage our clients. So when someone comes to us and they're like, "Hey, we're only getting a 2x return, 3x return, 4x return," typically when we dig in, they're not including the deals that are getting ready to close, right? So you're a little less than 3x. That's before some of your other deals close. But let's pretend it's even like a 3x without those other deals. You kind of mentioned it already, but kind of impact has it had on your PPC, your SEO, direct mail, anything else that you're doing right now?
Yeah, it's a game changer. And one thing that I'm excited about is we're rebranding our direct mail marketing. I think it's going to be a game changer because we're going to really lean into the credibility and put asking like what you recommend, right? And so for PPC, you gotta kind of cover your TV because people are going to search because they see you on TV, so you got to capture that, right? So it helps there because we would probably miss if we didn't have that. So it complements everything. Long story short, it really funnels everything back um, to the credibility that TV gives us.
So not only is there impact on those other lead channels that you can't really see. Sometimes you can see it because like if someone calls from direct mail and says, "Hey, I called you guys because you're on TV," which we get quite a bit, you can see the impact there. But sometimes they don't tell you that, right?
Yeah.
They've just seen the commercial, they see your direct mail piece, they call you, they don't, that doesn't come up in conversation. Um, so there's that impact. And then there's also just the impact of when you go to the appointment of maybe the conversations being different. So have you seen that yourself where when you go to an appointment, when you're on TV or when they mention you're on TV or from before when you were not on TV, now you're on TV, what the difference is as far as people just the way you talk to them and easier negotiations or anything like that?
Oh yeah, most definitely. And real quick before I get to that, to your point, like I'm looking at our organic presence and I do the bunny ears specifically because on our landing page we have how did you hear about us? And the numbers I gave you are without the 21 contracts that we've got from website and people who've checked boxes that say TV, radio, right? We specifically asked them, have you seen us there? So I mean, I would say another 80% of those people select yes, that they have. So, I mean, we're talking about 40 contracts just this year alone in 6 months from this channel potentially. So anyway, I just really wanted to emphasize that because I think it's important for people to track it because it could be discouraging if you're thinking, okay, I want this ROI, but what really truly is the ROI? So anyway, kind of back to your question with in the home, right? Like how that trust factor really plays out. I don't personally run to appointments or anything. I have a team who does it, and I probably should ask them more. But it is so powerful when we ask the question of, have you heard us on TV or have you seen us on the radio? Like it automatically just builds an extra level of, I don't need to call anybody else. Like if these guys are on TV, if they're on the radio, um, I already trust them. And so that's huge, right? It's a competitive advantage that you can't even really put weight on, right?
Yeah.
Or just the meetings in general, right? With being on TV.
Yeah. And you
I
finished
think
your
it'd
thought on
be
that, didn't you?
I did. No, I think
Okay.
it'd be shooting fish in a barrel. If I was the one actually attending these appointments, I don't, that's not like the business that I want to create really, right? But I know a company out here in Vegas who runs TV and I talked to his acquisitions team and he's like every single time they're like asking about the person. So tell me about so and so. Like, they're like curious. Like you're truly in their eyes a celebrity status. And so it's just interesting, right? Depends on who you ask. It could be a big ego boost for him. Not that that's the point, right? But it's like that's not the point of the channel, but it's confirmation to say you are like, not that anybody cares, but you're kind of on a pedestal. Like you're kind of like in the eyes of the public, like, whoa, I sold my house to this company and they were on TV. That's cool, right? Like you and I don't care.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's like that's the power.
Yeah, for sure. So when did you realize, I mean, I think you kind of answered this a little bit, but when were you at the point where like this is working, where you're like, okay, this is for sure like legit?
Well, my team, so as you know, we've been running TV for, however long. I think it's been over 3 years, but we paused it for a duration in 2024, kind of just going through some like changes and cleaning up some messes, to keep a long story short. And when we paused it, my team was like, "What did you do to the marketing?" And then we started it back up again, and we're like, please never shut off TV again because it was like super obvious. And the other thing is the conversion on those leads is extremely high. So with other channels, you don't know what to expect, right? With these people, if we're going on an appointment, we have a 1 in 3 chance of getting that house bought, which I would say is really good, right? I was just looking at the numbers. I was looking at contracts from offers made. So like if we're making an offer, we have a 1 in 3 chance of getting that deal bought. That's amazing, right? Very scalable.
Yeah, for sure. So do you feel like you've been able to get rid of any of your other marketing because of TV, or has it just been a supplement to your other forms of marketing?
I mean, I won't touch cold call. I won't touch any outbound stuff. I have no need to. Our team has good enough quality of leads coming in with TV and radio. There's no point in, I would say uh, there's no point in risking doing any other channels like that. And I think I've dialed down direct mail a little bit because we don't really need that many more leads. We're at a really good sweet spot. I think we're like we have 120 contracts already for the year, and our fallout rate is like minimal to nothing right now. So
Did you say 120 contracts so far, and we're in July right now?
120 contracts for the year so far.
Very
Yep.
nice.
Yeah, so we're probably pacing a couple hundred deals this year, which is it like blows away the record. I think our biggest year was in 22. We closed 100, and we're gonna probably double that this year. And so a big piece of that is because of we added on radio, right? So I know this is a TV, but we added on radio, and that's been a game changer. We've got 11 contracts from radio this year, and I think I told you this, I picked up a apartment building from a radio commercial this year.
Nice.
So that was pretty cool. That was a 6 unit building in Iowa. Um, but yeah, man, it's been awesome just seeing what's possible by having these good inbound channels.
Yeah, so we help with TV as well, or excuse me, radio as well with TV, and I think that's such a great complement. Like, I think TV complements a lot of things, especially like direct mail. But there's nothing better than I think radio, the complement, because TV helps radio, radio helps TV. They're both mass media, and they're both huge credibility plays because when people see you on TV, they really trust you, and then when someone hears you on radio, there's not quite the trust of TV, but there's still that trust because people feel like if you're spending the money to be on radio as well, that you are legit and you are credible. So I'm glad you keep mentioning radio because that's something a lot of people don't talk about as well. So talk about how you've been able to grow the team because of TV. So obviously, seems like more deals, more leads. I'm guessing you had to add acquisitions people at some point. Tell us kind of that evolution the last few years since you started TV.
Yeah, for sure. So um, we hired our first acquisitions in 2021, I think, or maybe even 2020. Oh, I think it was like 2021. That's been over 4 years ago. And at that point, we were not doing TV. And so he was able to handle everything. Um, when we turned on TV, we basically we had to hire somebody else. So we hired a second acquisitions person and we tried remote. I think I was sharing this with you. We tried somebody who was remote because I'm in Las Vegas and my business is operating in Nebraska. And there was a huge difference between somebody who was running those appointments for TV and then somebody who wasn't. The person who was in person just had a way more competitive advantage. So, although I'm virtual, the virtual sales process, in my opinion, for this market and lead source, it is just not touched when you're virtual versus in person because the demographic is older. They're more handshake type of people, and they tend to want to see somebody. Um, and so the evolution was we found out that virtual didn't work. And so we hired another local representative. We still only have two closers, and we have one lead manager who's in the market. One of our closers is in Mexico for the next week, uh, celebrating an amazing quarter two.
Mhm.
And one of my lead managers just messaged because he's actually running three appointments today. And he's like, I'm going to be shaking hands until my hand is sore because we've got so many we've got so many people who are ready to sell their house, right? And so really the evolution, the big one was the in-person. So team wise, we found a really good sweet spot with being able to manage with two closers and two setters.
Yeah, I definitely agree that in person is better. You're in the Midwest, your market's in the Midwest, my market's in the Midwest. I think people that are in the Midwest for the most part like to shake hands and like to be in person. There are a lot of markets actually that we have clients that are doing very well with virtual appointments where they're not actually going to the house. So I think it's part of it's market specific, part of it could be just the style of the company. Like for us, I think, with the people that I have on my team, they're way better in person. They're not nearly as good on the phone. So I think it is kind of like company and market specific potentially.
Yep.
And so talk about um, your team, right? So your acquisitions people. Um, Actually, let's talk about the process in general because that's one of the big questions we get is when I start TV, what should my process be? Should I have someone answer the phone? Should I send them a voicemail and call them back? Should I send them to an answering service? We get that a lot. I have my opinion, but I'd like to hear what you have tried and what you feel like works best from the standpoint of managing the leads that are coming in.
Yeah, so as you know, we hired a lead manager. We've always had a lead manager. We've tested out the whole remote out of the States versus the in-person. And I always think the most important thing when somebody calls into your company is that they have an amazing first impression. So regardless, if our acquisition's answering the phone or if our lead manager is answering the phone, we want them to have a good experience. Super obvious, right? This is like 101. However, um, to your point, people send their calls. Like I would never, I would never in a million years send one of my calls to an answering service. Honestly, for me, like it doesn't make sense. These leads are so good that I want my acquisitions have the opportunity to answer it. So we've changed this, right? So the reason I've said both so far is because the first half of this year, majority was our acquisitions answering the phone. And frankly, I think we found more success with doing that. They have that immediate rapport. But this is, I guess, a good problem to have. We ran into a bottleneck where they couldn't be running the amount of appointments that they were needing to while effectively answering the phone. So it forced us to hire a lead manager, and that's been working really well because he's in the same market. He's the guy who's actually running appointments for because our guy's out today. So he's a hybrid right now. But what I've noticed actually recently is there's a gap. Like there's a bigger gap when you have somebody setting appointments for a closer versus them setting their own appointments. And I think it's a rapport thing of like, okay, well, I spoke to so and so, but so and so is coming out to see me. I don't have as much trust as if I spoke to so and so and they're coming out to see me, if that makes sense. So um, we're trying to figure out how to close that gap right now. Like I'm like right now super laser focused on, okay, appointments set versus appointments attended, and why is there such a huge gap right now? If a seller calls in and they want to sell their house, our lead manager is processing it, they're setting up an appointment, but why is there a fallout? Why is there a cancellation rate on this? And why is it so big? So we're trying to close that gap right now. And I think if we once we get that gap closed, it's not even if, like once we get that gap closed, I love the model. I think that's what all of the best companies in the country who have the brand are doing is they're running the appointment setter and the appointment closer model.
Yeah. So there's no really wrong way to do it. There's just better ways to do it, I think. And it may be specific to the company again. So here's my spiel on it is I feel like you should try and answer the phone as much as you possibly can. So for us, if our team doesn't answer the phone, that's the only time that it goes to the answering service because I'd rather have a human that is answering it, even if they're not the greatest and even if they're not on our team, at least getting the information, putting it in our CRM, and they know they've talked to somebody. Again, that's kind of a last resort. We do that after hours as well. Um, we do have a client that really had an impact the other day on one of our mastermind calls. And he actually has three lead managers. And he's like, I will spend the money on three lead managers, even if I can't keep them busy enough, just to make sure that I know we are going to answer the call. So he may spend another, I don't know, 60 grand a year on an extra lead manager he doesn't need, but he may make another $200,000 by converting those deals that normally wouldn't have been answered that maybe they called a competitor or they couldn't get a hold of or something of that nature. So I guess what I'm getting to is obviously just make sure that you're handling the leads the way you need to handle them and try and make sure that you answer the phone. We've got if someone has a lead manager and acquisitions person, I agree. I would love for my acquisitions person to answer every single call, get out there as soon as possible, and there's no disconnect. But that's just not possible. You can't have an
Oh,
acquisitions person answer every single call because if they're good enough and they're busy enough, they should be on appointments for, 3, 4 hours a day, maybe even more some days. Um, so yeah, so I think there's different ways to do it, but any which way, just figure out how to get the phone answered, I think is number one. And then obviously get there out as soon as you can and get the deal closed, right?
I 100% agree. We have everybody in the call flow, even including myself, and I do the best I can to make sure not to answer it unless I absolutely have to because it's rang way too many times type of a deal. But a phone hitting an answering machine that's coming from that lead source is like just unacceptable because you're going to miss out on the best deals. The best deals, they call in and they sell to you for 50 cents on the dollar today. Like those are the best deals. And so you'd hate for them to miss you to miss their call and then they call your competition and then they get that deal.
100%. 100%. I think that's a big difference between a great campaign and potentially a good campaign or even a bad campaign. So it's interesting working with a lot of people now. When someone says something doesn't work, I kind of take it with a grain of salt because I don't know how they handle the leads, right? We've launched people in the same market around the same time, and you have one company or companies getting about the same amount of leads, but one company is closing twice at twice the rate. So one company may be closing one out of five deals, and the other company may be only closing one out of every five leads, and another one might be one out of every 10 or 12 leads, which is a huge difference. And there's a reason that they're converting that way. And part of it is answering the phone. And then, of course, there's other things that could go along with that as well. So, do you feel
100%.
like there's a certain type of lead that comes through with TV? So, if you look at your other campaigns, do you see like with TV, it's a different type of person, or do you feel like it's kind of similar to your other campaigns?
I really haven't looked at it. I haven't really audited that specific question enough to really give you a great clear answer, honestly. It's probably because we really only work with the most motivated people. So, just because it's fresh in my mind, I mean, I just saw there was a divorce lead that came through. I see a lot of inherited properties, and I think that's because of the older demographics. Um, well, I guess that wouldn't make as much sense, but yeah, I mean, all of the motivation factors. It's hard to really pin it down to any one thing because we see it all, right? We see all of the distress. So I haven't really
I
noticed
mean, so
anything.
yeah, it's still older people, right? Older people that probably have houses they've owned for a long time, most likely outdated, which is really our target market for TV, right? Because a lot of that's a demographic is older people, houses that are not in great shape, maybe lower income. So it's pretty similar to what you see from the other marketing channels. Sounds like.
Yeah, for sure. And I I just picture somebody sitting on their couch smoking a cigarette, right? Like that's who I picture calling in because like that's a lot of the people that we buy from is like they're watching TV, right? So their house, I don't know. I hate to associate that one thing with them letting their house maybe um not being as upkept, but there's enough evidence that that's typically the case.
Cigarette in their mouth, shag carpet, pink tile, maybe some blue in there. Let's be real. That's pretty much what we see with most of the deals we buy. So,
Yeah.
all right, cool. So, last question, I think. So let's say someone's thinking about TV. They're on the fence. Obviously, if someone's watching this, they're most likely kind of like, well, should I do TV? Should I not? What kind of advice would you give to someone that wants to do TV and then obviously potentially radio? What would you say to them?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you are around for the long haul, I think it's an absolute no-brainer. So, one thing that my mentor taught me early on was how important credibility is with your brand. And um, I see a lot of people not take it that seriously. And if you're planning to build a business that can really be sustainable, ideally without you, I think that's a goal for a lot of people, is you gotta have a brand and a reputation and a credibility that really gives your team the ability to close deals consistently, and that's how you're able to find good talent, all of those types of things. And so TV will help you do that faster. And so I would say it's a no-brainer if you're looking to do that and close more deals and make more money. I mean, I don't really know what else to say. It's just kind of a no-brainer.
Yeah, that's actually what I was going to ask you. Do you feel like it's a no-brainer? And then you answered my question.
It's a
So,
no-brainer. Yep.
all right, good stuff. So, you've heard Michael's story. So the question is, how much longer can you afford not to be on TV? So if you're ready to level up your market, build instant credibility, and start attracting motivated sellers who already trust you before they call, it might be time to look into TV and how it works for you. If you want to apply, see if your market's available, go to 10xtv.co. Again, 10xtv.co. And I didn't pay Michael to be on here. He gave his own time. If you give him some love, follow him on Instagram. He's doing some good stuff. Give him some love. And Michael, I appreciate you being on here. Not only a good client, but a good friend. And I just love seeing people like yourself who take something like this, they take the leap forward and absolutely crush it and reap the rewards. So, congrats on your success, man. Even 30 deals a year. Like some people don't even flip a house. So before you got found TV, you were still doing some good stuff, 30, 40 deals a year. It sounds like maybe 50.
Hmm.
But I'm just glad to see you succeed, man. I couldn't see a nicer guy have the success and reap the rewards from this. So appreciate your time, man. Appreciate knowing you and
Thank you.
glad you're crushing it.
Yeah, 100%, man. I appreciate you having me on. Thank you.
All right, cool, man. We'll see you guys on the next video.